Hello, I'm Einar Sörby from the old Unity Center. The center is now closed and we are now calling our website Unity Cloud. Today I got the honor to interview Wieteke Koolhof. Yes. She had a channeling yesterday in Oslo. I was so impressed. It was totally fantastic, and it sounded a little bit like Bashar, if you ever heard about him. It's maybe the same family channeling.
Actually, yeah.
Yes, and the information was so exact and so interesting that I hope she's going to come back to Norway many times. So this time we're going to just ask her some questions, and maybe put a little channeling clip from yesterday inside the video so you can see for yourself. I tried to get her to make a channeling on this interview, but she has to prepare more, and so it's maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe next time. Yes.
Okay. First, I think lots of people want to hear your story. A little bit about how you. In the papers, it said that you got contact already as a 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My first memories began when I was about 2.5, 3 years old. I literally remember, these kind of children's bed that have the bars in it.
Yes.
So I was standing, holding the bars, and this is the very first, clear memory I have of the visitations that I experienced as a child, because I was holding the bar, standing in this bed with big wide open eyes and watching these figures come through the wall into my room.
Oh.
So these are my first memories, and I've had, as far as I understand, visitations connected to the hybridization program and all kinds of extra terrestrial research throughout my childhood, teenage years and 20s. So it was very intensive in these times, and it slowed down a little after that. But when I started doing this work, it picked up again, but in a very different way. So in the beginning it was, I will honestly say, also kind of frightening for me.
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah. I was raised Christian. My mother was a single mom. I lived with her and my sister. And in the church culture, these things don't fit in. So everything extraordinary in that sense that frightens you is very quickly pushed into the corner of devil or demon. And that's why very young I decided not to talk about it, just to keep it to myself, because I tried sharing with some people, and I remember also at the age of 5 trying, but that the adults or the people that I spoke with looked at me with such deep concern that I felt their concern. And as an empath, which are many people right now, especially in the self-development, spiritual movements, I got concerned for their concern. Do you see? So yes. I was very young, picking up the responsibility and thinking, well, I better then don't share it with everybody because I frighten them. So I'll just keep my process to myself, and I've done that for the longest of times. Eventually, creativity has always been my way to process the experiences, which is why I followed my heart into art school at some point. And by painting and drawing, I found a way to translate it also into poetry. I play guitar, I like singing. So I just playfully turned it into storylines that reflected how, in a sense, a little bit out of this world I felt because of my own experiences. Also because in Europe there is very little talk about what is generally called abductions experiences, more so in the United States.
Yes.
So I didn't really discover that this even existed until maybe halfway my 20s. I heard about it for the first time. I started reading into it on the internet, but most of the stories back then were very fear-based. And it triggered fears in myself because I hadn't completely integrated things yet. So I left it aside. I was like, I'm not going to read this because it's lowering my energy, my frequency. But what I did do after having a close UFO encounter in a waking state at age 23, 24, it left me simply knowing without a shadow of a doubt that I had to go inward. I knew it. It was like nothing else matters. No, like friends, family, career, nothing else matters. Nothing is more important than to go inward. So after art school, the first thing I did was book a ticket to Thailand and travel by myself through Asia and begin that journey. And I visited monasteries, I took meditation classes, and every single time I would sit down for meditation, I got this like somebody brushes from the top of your head to the bottom of your spine, like this. I felt that, and I got these like goosebumps. And every time I was like, I really don't understand what happens every time I prepare for meditation when I feel that, but it feels like a sign, like a little nudge, like yes, you're in the right direction. And purely on intuition, and just because of such a subtle hint, I continued down that road. And because I did, I got more familiar with the interdimensional states, and I got to understand my dreams better and the contact experience that were happening then, still mostly at night. And eventually, to make a long story short, this kind of awareness traveled into my day state of being, eventually ending to a point where I could sit down and meditate and have open conversation with these guides that are indeed extraterrestrial, and in a sense related to the channelings that you know by Bashar, because they are hybrid species, and so is the race that I'm channeling, the YahYel. They're just closer to us, human, genetically, than the Sasani. Bashar is a member of the Sasani. Than they are, because they are like right in the middle of the gray human bridge that is being built in the hybridization project, and the YahYel are like basically the closest to us. So even more human looking, just slightly above ours. We are moving into, so if you call this third density, where we are, and we are moving gradually into fourth density, they're in fourth density, a little bit up there, but hovering over us almost, like super close actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
when did you start really channeling for people then?
For other people, about 5 years ago now.
5 years.
Yeah.
You like to do that?
I was terrified in the beginning to begin doing that, but I did. It was an experiment. I was already into life coaching. I had some clients. I was doing creative lifestyle coaching, like using the more general techniques such as tapping. I don't know if you know it. Yeah, and Ho'oponopono and things like this, because it worked so well for me in my own journey. So I wanted to pass it on. So I did that from a passion. And it was in that journey of being a life coach that, well, let's call them the ET team, started to hook up with me much more presently, because they understood I had overcome my own fear of working with people directly. Because when I was in the arts, I was avoiding direct contact with people. I was like, let me work behind the scenes, I'm fine with that. So it was already a step, overcoming my own fears, becoming a life coach, but it felt really good. And then they knew now the time is right, because you're already doing what you love, you have followed your passion to the best of your ability, you have overcome some major fears, and this is the point where the doors are open for us to begin to work publicly in a co-creation. And so they announced it to me, actually first privately and then through another channel, because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was stupefied, like, yeah, right, there are already so many channels, like why me? What difference does it make? I had so many irrational resistance in the beginning, but only because I went to another channeler at some point. I did not tell her about this, But when she started telling me the same thing, while Arjun was basically standing on one end of me and she was channeling for me on the other end, so I heard it basically in stereo.
Okay.
I thought, okay, now I can no longer deny this message. And I said, okay guys, let's play. So I asked my clients, some open-minded ones, most open-minded ones, okay, are you in for an experiment? And some were, and I started this channeling for them in private sessions, like test running it to see, also to convince my own rational mind that this could even be done. And within 3 or 4 months, I think I did 30 trial sessions before I was 100% convinced. And I felt that it was going smooth because there was a lot more ticks and stuff going on in the beginning. But then after 3 to 4 months, my entire clientele had shifted to wanting only channeling.
Okay.
So everything else I was doing, by then, I let it go.
Okay.
I changed the website, I told my family, I came out of the closet. It was like really crazy times in that sense. I made such a big leap. And a big part of it, I was laying awake at night, what am I doing? But also really powered up with excitement, because every time I hook up with them, it feels like you're, in my case, it feels like I'm in love, like I'm 100% in what right now is my highest excitement. Of course that can change. I don't know if I will do this forever. I know that it is only one step of the way to open contact. That channeling is like a primary way of making contact with humanity, because it's non-invasive, it's respectful, and it's an open invitation. But that will also develop into itself. I understand that vocal channeling is gonna warp also into a more full experience for more and more people who are willing to dive in. It will always be a free choice though.
One thing, when you talked about this yesterday, you also talked about somebody asked you, why don't you have first contact?
Yeah.
And then you had a very good answer about we weren't ready yet.
That's what Arjun explains, yeah, that if we were ready, it would happen. It's very basic actually. And also from our own history, examples where Western man comes to a continent with indigenous people, when they push their values upon these people, death, disease and disaster is what hits them. So it's very clearly, the past has proven to us many times that you can't push a particular point of view on another, even in a one-on-one relationship, you simply can't. So there's so much love, there's so much in touch with our bigger collective, and we can talk about this collective consciousness more also later. They tune in a sense with our planet's collective oversoul in any given moment that you make a part of, out of in any given moment, and they check in with that. It's like they go through several filters before they give their answer, and I kind of can feel them do that. And they go through different filters for an individual, and they go through different filters for a group, but they always have to go through our collective consciousness field. And it's in that field, you could say, written energetically how ready we are for what kind of contact.
Yes.
And still in our civilization, in our society, there are individuals that are definitely much more ready than others. And there are a tiny fragment of people on the earth, Arjun tells me, that are having actual contact on a regular basis. Like UFOs would land for them and they would come out and talk. But it's a very small amount of people, and they're basically holding this space. They're anonymous, they're not in the picture of the news or anything. They're not looking for that either. They're more like these kind of silent, retreated gurus that hold up the energy field for the collective to catch on at some point. But more and more are rising there, and we are taking in between steps.
I guess I get some goosebumps.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that means it hits a string in you somehow. Most of us are taking tiny in between steps. Like it started for me with unexplainable experiences in the night, and maybe goosebumps when you meditate. tiny things and trusting those little breadcrumbs that we have left for ourselves along the way to find our way. That's what it's about.
Yes. I think everybody in humankind can do this eventually, but
a version of this.
Yeah, but when we talk about self-development, the center we had, Unity Center, we were working a lot with self-development. We had lots of therapists working, helping people with self-development, and so on. But I usually wondered, is that important?
Yes.
Why?
Why? Oh my God. So even the word self-development can be looked at in many ways, I guess. For one person it means to have an amazing career, and for another person to have a very trained body. But the self-development that we're speaking about here is getting to know yourself in a deeper sense, beyond the superficial outside picture. And in harmony with your surroundings. Who do you want to be? Who do you believe yourself to be right now? Do you consider yourself free to take choices in your life that truly excite you? Or are you taking your choices because society expects you to take them? And that is the most important thing in the world, if you would ask me. Yeah. And
you said also yesterday the same thing as Bashar says. When you wonder if something is right, follow your highest excitement.
Yeah.
Bashar says, and you said it also yesterday.
Arjun, they say the exact same thing, because, well, like I said, they're the same hybrid lineage.
Yeah.
They carry the same exact message. So in the beginning, when it comes to this at least, I asked Arjun, oh really, are we gonna translate the exact same sentence? Isn't that a little boring? Shouldn't the YahYel message be at least a little bit different, so it would be more uniquely you? And he said, why change the shape of a wheel that is working?
Yes.
So if it's round, compact, simple and effective, why alter it? And I was, there's nothing I can say to that. So okay, let's just go with it. They're using the same main message because it is fundamentally the most effective truth for us to use as a building block in our own development.
Yes. So is that why we get born on Earth, is in this particular dimension? Is it to do self-development? Is that why we're on Earth now?
In a sense, to get to know yourself, to rediscover yourself from a point of view that cannot possibly be had in the non-physical. Because when you're there, you have the overview. You already know everything, you don't have to remember, that you're actually pure unconditional love. But it takes a very strong, enthusiastic soul to jump into this kind of journey. Because this is, they say to me, it's a high school. It's like a really amazingly thorough way of exploring reality. To really agree to forget so much of who you actually are, and then throughout the journey of this space-time reality, see if you can rediscover or discover the traces, the little marker points that you left for yourself. Because in spirit, you already knew, I'm gonna leave myself reminders. I'm gonna meet this person at that age approximately. Maybe I will stumble into that situation and then learn that. So we have some markers. Without saying that anything is set in stone, the markers shift fluidly together with how we, with our free will, choose out of the probabilities in front of us. So we can largen, I think is the word, the probability that we will encounter a certain marker earlier in time or later in time, depending on our choices in life. And some people just want to get it over with and pick for a really intense childhood, and then they know that through having a lot of load in your wagon very early on, that you will probably be pushed to find solutions and think out of the box at an early age, and then that will help you ahead in your process later down the line. But everything serves as the offering of a gift. But if we don't get that, then you might be tempted, your ego, to label it as a long row of bad luck. It's just depending on how good you know yourself. So this is why it's so important to the self-development, because when you go inward, you discover that there is a part of you that is very wise, that already has all the answers. And also Arjun says, whenever people come to them for information, it's a mirror, it's a reflection. They only translate what your higher self has to say to you. So they're basically your permission slip for talking to yourself. And one day we will all figure it out.
Yes.
And when you said, in a sense, we can all do this, channeling, yes, because you are doing it, we're just not aware of it often. You're doing it, but we're keeping it mainly passive. For us to become aware of the fact that we are in fact channeling our higher self, which is pure unconditional love and magic and full of surprises, it becomes apparent to us when we start to allow ourselves to follow our highest excitement, to really take the steps in that direction. And somebody may discover that they want to be a painter or a dancer or a singer. And when I do these things, they channel. When they do these things, they channel.
I've thought about that.
Everybody's channeling is going to look different.
Yes.
Would be weird if you had two identically the same.
Yes. When I see people doing, if they're really good in something, it's like an astrologer or painter, I think they do things that's not human. So I think maybe it's channeling.
Exactly. Yes. Because the supreme quality of whatever they're doing, because they're getting so specified at their passion, by feeding it more and more, it gets to such a high degree that you're, wow, it's almost not human, quote unquote. But the joke is, that is actually human. They're showing us the actual potential of being human. And every single human being has a similar degree of awesome potential hiding in them.
Yes.
And
so we have to find that.
Yeah, that's the open invitation. You don't have to, you can if you want to.
Okay. But one big question that everybody wonders, if you come in and when you die or come in other dimensions, you know everything. So why do you have to work down here? Why do you have to do all this work as a human when all information already is there?
Because it's available as a pathway in all that is, and everything that is serves a function. So it's already here, it's here now. So why not take use of the possibility to explore in that way? Because what's new about it is the experience. You literally cannot have such a focused experience in that higher dimension. You can't. Yes. So what we're doing here is unique and does add to the whole. If it didn't, it wouldn't exist.
Yes, it adds to the collective consciousness
of everything, of all that is. Yeah.
Okay, that was a good answer.
Okay, thanks. Arjun.
Which is okay. Self-development is getting inside yourself, but how do we get in contact with our higher self? We talked about meditation.
That's a tool that you can use, but for other people maybe it's jogging or cooking or singing. Yes. Whatever, getting in touch with your higher self is the same thing as following your highest excitement. Same thing. Whatever tool works for you. So for me, I really like also to do yoga, for instance, every day. I have a little bit of my personal ritual that keeps me in touch with the physical in a way that I really, really like, and allows me to be grounded and anchored enough to also make that connection to higher dimensional frequencies without getting completely dizzy all the day or something. I like actually to work with my hands, since the art school background and creative work was really always up my alley, so to speak. Give me a toolkit, I'm fine. Yeah, I can actually like drill a hole and use a hammer and a saw, and I'm really not afraid to do that. So it's funny how I love working with the earth, being grounded, being human. But the funny thing is, I think I started loving my human beingness even more once I understood my interstellar connections. And what I see a lot in this time and age is spiritual people who feel ungrounded, who long back for something out there, and therefore don't allow themselves to ever fully land here and have the actual human experience that they signed up for as a soul, which is a really drifting kind of lost energy to be in, and I have experienced it myself in the beginning of my life. Yeah, so it's funny when people say this ET stuff is up there. It's funny how paradoxically it can really ground you here and make you of a very strong contribution to your environment. The people here in a practical, pragmatic way. We have so much to offer when we realize our place in the whole, and that we're not just a coincidental accident on some planet in the middle of nowhere and we're all alone. That's actually quite a depressing thought.
Yes, talk about depressing thought. When you see, as in the Western world, especially, and also in Norway, especially, people they have economy, most of them have enough money, and they get lazy. They go on trips and look at television all evening. I think very many people they don't do any really self-development things. But is that decadence? What is that also something that's signed up for, or is it because
it's free will?
It's free, yes, of course.
Anyone can do it. I could do that if I wanted to. Yes. I could start watching television again. I left it 15 years ago. I quit, but I could do it.
Yes.
And we all have free will, so that is simply a reflection of the fact that we are all magnificent creators of our own reality, and that this is also a choice that is available.
So do you think they also signed up for that?
Signed up sounds a little bit like you have no choice, but this is what I'm trying to counterbalance it with. It's a choice, and it's just as valid as any other, in fact. Yeah. And
then we have this ascension thing. The Mayan calendar and so. I talked with Don Alejandro. We have a video of him talking about their calendar. And in these times, we have a window open now where we can easier jump up to another dimension. Can you explain that? I've got so many versions of it. What is your version? What is the ascension thing?
Well, it's the raising of the frequency. So we are all a certain energy wavelength, or a radio station, that you could say. You describe a particular personality that you are in every single moment, and you have a signature wavelength that you are recognized by. When I look at you, I see that, I feel that before I know your name. So it's energetic. And this is actually how the ETs also communicate with us. They don't use names in their own society because they identify each other by this wavelength. So whether you are a rock or a stone, a plant, an animal or a human being, it doesn't matter. Whatever being you are, you have a kind of energy wavelength. Ascension is basically another word for evolution. We're always evolving, so you can't help but ascend, in fact. But this time is being identified as a time of ascension because the time of transition that we are in is quite spectacular. So the ETs are really telling me, and many guides are getting this, and teachers and gurus and Native Americans, sharing with us that this is a really special time because in our evolution we are taking a leap that hasn't been taken in a long time. There is a kind of cycle, although it isn't a repetitive pattern, it's more like Arjun shows me a spiral. So it's never the same thing. You do cross the so-called same points, but if you look at it from the top, it looks a circle, but if you look from the side, it's a spiral. So it's always a new chapter, new round. And the chapter we're moving into as a collective right now, and I have to kind of like watch my words here because it's always, we also still create our own reality. So the collective we choose to be connected to as an individual, what we are seeing right now, what we are co-creating right now, that collective is making a leap into a more non-physical direction. And it's not going to be, at least not for the majority of us, is what Arjun explains. It's not going to be you wake up one day and you're in the fifth dimension. It's a gradual thing that we are training ourselves to become familiar with. By if you do some kind of self-development, it will be much more obvious to you, because otherwise you see less of that. By seeing more synchronicity in your life, by encountering more miraculous, spontaneous plot twists, in cases of disease, spontaneous healing, all kinds of things like that can suddenly manifest much easier because you are faithful to yourself and in alignment with your higher self. And then you will shift to a collective that sees the miracles and the progression that come with that, which might be free energy and eventually perhaps open contact, a change of the system politically, economically, like big shifts that right now our rational mind would think, how? This is going to take hundreds of years. It's so complex, how is this going to work? But we cannot possibly imagine what's actually available for us in that higher energy frequency that we're moving into. And the shifts can go much faster than they could have in the past, as far as we've witnessed it right now in our history as we know it. Yeah.
Okay, so but do we have a window of time before it goes, this exceptional time goes back to normal again?
It's never going to go back. That's with the spiral.
Yeah, but I thought about
it's more like it's splitting. So a group will shift themselves with their awareness into a conscious collective and an individual experience of this acceleration.
Yes.
And a group will not. A group will decide to remain behind the television. Because we have free will, they won't be on that same bus.
Yeah, that was what I was meaning at with the other question.
Yeah.
And Bashar had this, he explained it with, we are on different trains.
Tracks. It's a good analogy, yeah. I like
and
it.
the train tracks are now
beginning to split.
Yeah, they're not parallel anymore.
Exactly.
It's more and more difficult to jump between the trains.
Yes, but all of them are in their own type of spiral, and they're all going in their own unique form into a different kind of ascension. Yeah. But nobody's missing ascension, they're just having their own variety of ascension. Okay. Because this is much more like, have you ever seen a picture of a fractal? Yeah. And it continues to, it's that complex. Yeah. This is the kind of images Arjun uses to explain this kind of stuff to me. It's very infinitely renewing itself, always unique. Yeah. And everybody is ascending, but in their own way, in their own direction. Yeah. Of course there's preferred and less preferred, but there's no dead ends, because even those who go on a train track now that is very not preferred, when they pass over after this life, in the non-physical they can choose resets, a new direction, or I'm going to do this life again but differently, and then I'm choosing a path that leads to a more preferred ascension. Okay. Everything is possible.
Wow.
Yeah, it gets really roller coaster. Yeah. Not saying that, of course, to anybody they should stop caring.
Next question.
Yes.
We had a little stop there. Wanted to a little bit about the collective consciousness. I'm a little bit interested and fascinated about that.
Yeah.
Is that when with my consciousness, when I learn something new, the new thing goes out to this collective consciousness.
Yeah.
As we talked about the 100 monkeys yesterday.
Yeah.
Then other people can take it down.
Yes. Correct.
So that's why when Einstein and these people they discover new things, it's very often different people taking down the same solutions on things, and that's coming from the collective consciousness.
Yes, like some inventions, like I think the sewing machine and the steam locomotive, they were invented on several places on the earth around in the same time.
Yes.
Like several years, maybe a time frame of a few years, maybe 2 or 3 only. And then different people had the same idea. On different continents sometimes even. And it's just because collectively we were ready to begin to download that. Yeah.
So that's the.
And those who are open for it then can ground it.
Yes. So then we have different collective consciousnesses.
Yes.
In different dimensions.
Yes, and that is individually determined. So your collective consciousness
is very low,
right now is just as big as mine, but it might translate different in your perception of reality. So the non-physical one is the same, you could say, that binds us all, but how it translates for you in the way you watch your version of reality is different from mine, and that's why we are two individuals.
Yes.
Because all that is, or source, is exploring, is getting to know itself through all of our unique different perspectives.
Yes.
But it's still non-physically, it binds us. So a nice image maybe to describe this. You know of the crop circles in England?
Yes, I'm in there.
There is, oh nice. Yeah, me too, it's really nice. So there's this one at some point that looks like a jellyfish.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can even put the picture in the video somehow, or people can Google it.
Okay.
Jellyfish crop circle. And it has this different layers, a little bit like umbrellas on top of each other, building up this jellyfish, and then these long tentacles going down.
Yes.
And for me, that was a really beautiful example of the different layers or dimensional layers. If you wish to translate it into a picture in our dimension, it could be used as an analogy of the different dimensional realities that exist and how we are again and again and again hooded by a bigger umbrella that holds it all together. Because think about it, if eventually all that is stems from the one, it needs to somehow be embraced by a bigger and bigger umbrella.
Yes.
So the paradox is that we all are the one eventually, and so we are creating each other as source, and we are right now as two fragment entities observing each other. We are also extensions of the one source, because at that point of view we're not having that right now. So this was a little bit complex maybe, but this image of the jellyfish maybe explains a little bit like the second umbrella or something. You have your soul, you have collective consciousness, actually the other way around. You have higher self, you have collective consciousness is even below higher self. Then higher self, then, oh, it's actually around and about the same. Sorry for this. But they kind of resonate in synchronicity. Your higher self determines in what collective you will be focused. So it goes through different filters to create this perception of reality. And then above that higher self is soul. Above that is oversoul that connects multiple souls. And that's where I meet Arjun when I channel. This kind of goes like that. Although while I'm describing it like this, it's really very, how do you say, limited. Because really, I could, like I am right now, cut it up into pieces and drag in that jellyfish and everything. But eventually, it doesn't look linear. It's just how you could explain it here.
Yes, we have to explain
but it's not linear, because all of that is in you, and in me, and in all of us.
Yes.
It's like a matrushka, more. You know these Russian dolls that go one over the other?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's more like that. And then you have another bigger layer where you are, another level of you is aware that it creates the entire universe that you're focused in. And then there is a level of you that understands beyond that. I know. But because we are living in a holographic reality, that element of you, whatever that is, or whatever you would call that or label that, is also contained by you right now. It is accessible in some way. It can translate in some way into the experience that you're having here. And for me, the simplest way to explain this perhaps is when we feel in love, when we feel in alignment, is when everything we need flows to us and through us so beautifully, so synchronistically, that you can sense and be much more consciously aware of that connectedness with the whole. And then you begin to feel that you are a hologram element, that you are part of all that is. And this is often what people call they have a religious vision, or they have a God experience. And for a moment they recognize their God spark within themselves. And many people, it changes their lives. Yeah.
But how is your consciousness, my consciousness? I think most people in the Western world believe that the consciousness is made in your brain.
Right.
But can you just give a short explanation how it works? It goes through this medulla thing, is that?
Well, it's a little bit the other way around, is what Arjun explains. It's more that we are holding, like again this matrushka, we're holding this focused storyline that we're creating in so-called physical world. We're holding it inside our energy. So it's not in your head. Your head contains a biological antenna, which is basically what the brain is, to receive the energy wavelengths of your bigger self, so that you can communicate with it. And that's of course really useful. But it's not created in here and then sent outward. Though there is a ping-pong communication between your focused version of you, your persona self, and your higher self constantly going on. Because your higher self is like probing you and checking in with you. Are you using the road marks, the tools, the invitations that I'm constantly giving you to guide you lovingly on your way? Or are you choosing to ignore all of that? Because if you do, we will have to change the road marker, we have to change the setup, we will give you a different hint. And so you will constantly guide yourself. And by doing self-development work, you can become much more consciously aware of that guidance. And through the higher self, then also, if relevant for you, it's not relevant for everybody. The idea of other guides or entities of higher dimensional frequencies can come in and co-create on your journey. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I have to do some more self-development, I think.
I don't know. I think you're doing a really good job already.
Okay. This is going to take a long time, I think. We have planned to put in a video from yesterday.
A fragment.
A fragment of a video where you're channeling,
Arjun,
and Arjun is talking about that was a special kind of illness.
Yeah, the questioner had
some kind of
physical challenge.
Yeah, and the answer was, I think, would be broad for a little bit about all kinds of illnesses, why you have an illness, and it's one thing maybe you choose or something. But we're gonna put that into the video within a few minutes. But can you just take a very short illnesses like asthma, cancer, all kinds of illnesses? Is that something we also have choose to have before we got into the human being?
Not necessarily before, because again, if you look at this as a marker, it may be relevant as a marker on your journey as a result of making other decisions in your life before that. So you may choose that there is a probability that you might manifest a kind of disease physically if you go that direction in your life. But if you take that direction, it will never manifest. So this is again free will. Nothing is set in stone ever. All parallel versions of you exist. There's a version of you right now super sick. I don't mean that in a bad way. Of me too. And there is a version that never got sick, and it all exists. It's just, what do we allow our consciousness to focus on? And it's really important, especially in this topic, because it's so sensitive for many people, to understand that there are a gazillion reasons why you would manifest that. It can be to speed up your own self-awareness. It can be a very basic hint for a person who always believed they had to do everything alone. And by getting sick, they discover how many people are willing to help them out. And maybe that's the message. So there are so many reasons, from very subtle to really big insights, to doing it for your own journey, to doing it for other people's journeys even, as a collective agreement. There are so many reasons. There's not one answer to this. And I think Arjun is also attempting to explain that in that clip.
Okay, then we'll maybe show that clip
now.
Right now.
Yes. Any particular type of dis-ease in that sense is often on a higher level chosen language manifesting through the body of something that needs your attention, your conscious attention. Now, sometimes individuals on your planet will choose to manifest a dis-ease, not necessarily only for themselves, but for their environment. Because, as you all know, perhaps, when a person that you care about a lot gets quote-unquote sick, manifests in that way a particular new storyline, you are pushed, invited to, really, to become more aware of who you are, how you wish to respond to these circumstances that you have co-created in that moment. So some of you choose to be messengers, gurus, teachers for their environment by taking quote-unquote upon them a particular dis-ease. That is just one of the many, many, many reasons that on a higher self level you could pick to manifest a thing like this for yourself. So, by accepting where you are in this here and now, you begin to allow changes to occur in new directions. Seeing that you have not up until now followed your highest excitement to the best of your ability or at all, in that sense accepting that, loving yourself nonetheless, forgiving yourself if needed, helps you neutralize the energy frequency that is around and about you and around this dis-ease right now, and clears the road for new probabilities to manifest in your reality. You see, courage doesn't mean an absence of fear. It means fear is there, but you move anyway. That is courage. You're gonna have to make the step forward to find out eventually what will be around the corner for you next. Do you understand? So thinking about it is a nice way of pre-paving the road. Very beautiful, visualizing, yes, yes, thank you. But you will eventually have to act on it. Because as you act, you send out a message to your body and everything around you, to the bigger version of you, the universe, your higher self, showing that you know that you can do it. Not just think about doing it or trying to do it. You know you can do it. Sitting here right now, while you're in conversation with us, shows you, your body, and your environment that you know that you can do this. And you're following your excitement right now, are you not?
And I'm very excited.
Thank you. This has a particular energy frequency effect in every single cell in your body. you're healing, you're realigning with your own higher self right now. As you are reveling and allowing yourself to revel in this here and now moment, where there is really zero reason to think about any dis-ease, you know that when you are in love, that although you are often tended to call that blind, but that your radar will seem to navigate only to that other person. Yes?
Yes.
There's no room in your mind for anything else. That is your natural state of being. To be in love. You just shared with us that you have more attention now for every single tiny thing. Tiny, though, is just as big as is tremendously large. It's up to you how you wish to define things, giving you a little hint here. Yes? Because with more attention for tiny things, everything has changed, has it not? So the effect of your attention for tiny things has changed the whole, which is large. So you have already shifted all the way to a new version of you, and you are in every single here and now, again and again and again, allowing yourself to shift. So find, if you wish to play, definitions that amp up the true allowance of the sensation of flow and freedom in your life in any given moment. And if you do think about the dis-ease that you have co-created with your physical body as a neutral messenger, not as a punishment, as a neutral messenger because you love yourself so much that you would send yourself a message this big to wake you up to your true natural self, that's how much you love yourself. The next time if that subject comes into your world, speaking with other people about it, or thinking about it for yourself, or looking in the mirror and practicing this for a few rounds, see if you can find a top 10 positive definitions for your dis-ease, and it will become ease to have this in your system for as long as you choose to manifest it in this particular way. You will be the happiest autoimmune patient people have ever met.
Yeah,
I laid out for myself a route for my auto, for my car, that is amping up my immune, first energetically and eventually physically. I understand that that's the game that I've chosen, and I'm having so much fun with it. That laughter right there is your realignment with higher self. Do you understand this?
I can feel it.
This doesn't have to be as heavy as your collective consciously has created it to be. Diseases were never meant to be looked at that way. One day, you will come to a point in your civilization, maybe not for all of you, but definitely for some, where you congratulate each other with the enormously creative ways that you have found to physically help yourself remember how incredibly much you love yourself. Even if that looks like breaking a leg or bumping your head into a wall. Wow, you must love yourself really, really. You understand this?
Yes, yes.
And it will become a lot lighter to move away from it. We have a little, very short poem for you, for all of you, to help you remember that this is how manifestation works in your reality. As long as you resist, it persists. Perhaps you were familiar with that one. We say hating it is dating it. So as long as you're investing a lot of energy into trying to push something away, it will only push back harder. Fall in love with it and allow it to flow. You're sending yourself a message, and if you are really willing to receive it, you are willing to, quote unquote, leave it. But that will be what we call transformation, because nothing is actually being left, and within all that is, everything will always exist. You will just have shifted yourself into another version of you that really eventually never was sick to begin with. Didn't need this kind of messenger to wake herself up. You understand? Can you play with that?
Yes.
Well, we thank you so much.
And this was a gift, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
And I'm so excited.
Yes, I hope you looked at the video right now and got some good vibes. Do you have any comments for the video?
Yeah, in general, to wrap it up, I think, yeah, of course it's for everybody important to take from this information what works for them and to leave what doesn't work for them, because we are all in our own yeah, step of evolution, our own individual evolution. And yeah, disease can be really challenging, and I really understand that, and I've gone through some in my own life. And it can also be a major wake-up call. I think it's really Arjun's passion to show that circumstances really don't matter, whatever they look like. You can take something from it that works in your benefit. If only the simple recognition that perhaps you walked a certain path and that is not working for you, but that is still valuable as a lesson, something that you can look at as a gift. So yeah, I think that's a nice one to keep an open ending to it, and for everybody to invite them to play with this as they feel fit for their situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That's a good one. Okay, then we kind of start wrapping up this interview. And one of my last questions is, when we go on YouTube, it's millions and millions of videos and channelings. How do we find a good channeling? How do we find a channeling that's true, a genuine channeling? And what I have experienced is, I found my channels I look at Bashar, Hicks, and a few others, but I don't know why I choose them. I think it's because they resonated with me. I thought those answers they gave was really good answers. They sounded like they come from another dimension, and it looks like it sounded like they were very genuine, and for me it sounded, this has to be the truth. Then you have, you said a good way to find out what is a good message.
Yeah, well, in the foundation you already kind of said it. What resonates with you individually, of course, is your main arrow in your compass. But there are some general, I could say, maybe tips that are open invitations for people to take in mind as they start this journey of looking, hey, what else is out there? There are so many offerings right now. And as you are finding your way and you're still really blue in this, you know, then it's good to keep in mind that whoever is sharing the message, no matter where they say it's from, to check if it's truly love-based and not fear-based. So fear-based is if it makes you feel restless, if there are predictions in it that are really, really rigid and that make you feel like, oh, something bad is going to happen, and you don't feel joy, you don't feel self-empowered, you feel actually like you are depending on this information. And this also goes for small independent working mediums or healers that tell you, you have to come back to me, or you can't make your own decisions, or ooh, this looks very bad for you, stuff like that. They may be reading into a probability in the yes. big amount of probabilities that is available for everybody in every given moment, but nothing is set in stone. Again, I think it's really important for people in this day and age, if you do wish to do self-development, to emphasize and keep an eye on your self-empowerment. So if it feels like nourishing for your heart, you feel energized by it, more strong, like you can take that message and actually leave the messenger behind and use it in your life in a practical way and go on your merry way, then you have information that is to the maximum benefit, I would say. But these are my own standards. So I can only share this, you know, point of view as an open tip. If anybody would ask me, then I would say that is something to keep in mind if you want to.
Yeah.
But some people get a thrill out of, you know, hearing scary stories, and then you are good with that, because in another way that serves them on their journey in that moment too.
Yes.
I trust it does in some way.
Well, that resonates for me too.
Okay. So,
okay. Wieteke.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Einar.
But I said to you in the beginning, do you have a small message you want to get out, or was this the message?
Like a personal message for the world.
For the world.
Yeah, I would say it's gonna be sounding very much like the hybrids have already 1,000 times told us, but I can only encourage people to truly see, if no matter how small in your life, see if you can implement somewhere where you can begin to follow your joy and excitement in some way. And if you feel very, very trapped, which I know a lot of people do right now, it can be in a hobby, it can be in collecting something, or going to a meetup for a very first time. If like a daytime job is occupying most of your agenda, instead of relaxing behind the television in the evening, try a workshop, meet new people, do something that you wanted to do as a child and you never gave yourself permission to do it. No matter how silly it seems, it's those kind of actions where the magic is hiding, in my personal experience, that open the door to more steps of excitement that you can follow in your life, because there will be something else there. And yeah, I have to add to this. I really recommend this, but also to go into it with no expectation, which is also what the hybrids say, but that is truly the full package.
Yes.
So yeah, to allow yourself to play again. You're never too old to play. I think that would be my personal message.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much.
This was fantastic.
Thank you for your work.
I hope we see you again very soon.
That would be lovely. Thank you.